I'll be shouting them out.
Here we go. We are live. Today is Monday, the 20th of August, 2018. Go on then, Flat Earth dudes. Today is Monday.
How we doing?
August 2018. Here's someone's coffee.
That was a watch page. It wasn't me.
It wasn't you. It was Nicolas, who we're going to introduce in a minute. Do you want to shout out to the chat room?
Not yet. Well, chill. Here we are. We're live. Okay. Chillster, man. What's up? Wow. Okay. Robert Humphrey. Intro musicable. I think they said that right. Anyway, great to have you, Nicolas. Great to have you, man.
Yes, nice.
Karen.
Oh, nice to be here. Sorry, I just twinged. I broke my arm, so excuse me if I twinge in pain.
Mary's here, Nimble Horse, Polio, and Nicolas Vedic Viking, and that's you who's on the panel.
Me, that's me. Hiya.
Hey, so first of all, what have you done to your arm?
Well, I moved to Glastonbury from Devon last Saturday and basically moved everything. Everything went perfectly well. And the rain was coming down, slipped on the ramp, landed in the road, broke my elbow. So, suffering a bit. It must be the gods of Glastonbury demanding their blood sacrifice, I guess. Yeah.
Gotta be.
Just as you get.
Gotta be, right?
That's it. You got to pay the
on here. Flat Earth Dude, Patricia, and Nicolas, by the way, to the chat room. Carry on, Nicolas. Yeah, it's not nice. It hurts, and it didn't even happen to me.
Yeah.
Right.
The thought of it.
Yeah. So 4 weeks or so, I guess, off work. So that's nice.
Oh.
With all the Flat Earth stuff online, gives me a bit of time to catch up with all of it.
Any excuse not to help sort the house out, hey?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, it's really nice on our panel. Obviously, you've been in the chat room lots, and thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And
a few years now.
Yeah. Thank you. It's really great that you support our channel. It's really great. Thank you, Nicolas. Anyway, you're one of the guests today.
I know.
So, Nicolas,
It's great. All
here
right.
comes James. We'll just say hello to James before Nicolas carries on. James.
Hello.
James.
Hello, James.
James. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, it's great to be here. Fantastic, man.
Always good to be here.
Nice.
James, you're on with obviously Flat Earth Dude. We've got someone new to our panel, which we're just going to talk to and ask him some stuff, and then we'll talk about your stuff in a little bit. Nicolas is his name, and Patricia and me. So that's who's on the hangout today. But Nicolas.
Hi there, James. All right, mate.
Oh yeah, good man. Yeah, cool.
Anyway, it's tomorrow morning for James, so we have 20 plans for him.
Coffee time.
Yeah, I need some coffee. All right, it's 1:11
anyway,
here.
Thanks for being here, James. Anyway, we're just going to talk to Nicolas just for a minute, because I was just going to ask him, how long have you been, excuse me, James, how long have you been a flat earther then, Nicolas?
Well, it's kind of weird because I'd kind of say since I'm nearly 48. Okay, I'll be 48 at the end of August. And I've probably been a flat earther, not even really knowing it, since the 80s.
Nice.
Because I lived in 1985, 86. I was living out in the Himalayan foothills out in India. And I was lucky enough to be at an international school out there for several years. And I was at a levitation of 7,500 feet up. So you get some pretty good views. And then you could obviously go higher than that from the Himalayan foothills upwards. But 7,500 foot was where I was at school there. And we used to get these telescopes and just look out across the range, just look for as far as you could see with these powerful optics. Obviously not as powerful as the optics you get today, but they were pretty good telescopes. And I used to ask the question of, why is it nothing seems to drop away? And I said this to my science teacher, it was, 1985. I was 15, 86, 16, around that sort of age. And I'd say, well, why doesn't it drop away? Surely there must be, these peaks must drop away. And I used to find that really, really bizarre. And I was kind of in my head convinced that we actually weren't living where we were living. But obviously as a 15, 16-year-old, got sidetracked by life, you know,
Yeah.
the teens took over and then the 20s take over, and that was the 90s. So I was into the whole rave thing. So that was that. But then suddenly in 2015, I mean, I was kind of into the whole conspiracy stuff and UFOs and all of that, you know, the whole David Icke trip and all of that stuff, you know. I think I covered pretty much through the 90s. But then in 2015, I saw a Matthew Powerland video. Matthew Powerland.
Right.
And
the comedy one? Remember he's doing the
well,
comedy?
No, it wasn't even a comedy one. It was like he was, I can't remember what it was called, but it wasn't a comedy set. It was basically him sat on a chair outdoors, just talking about the earth and the shape of the earth. He had some painting behind him, and with this, it was it's a long time ago, the video that he was, I think it was a long video, long time ago. So that suddenly triggered me. I was like, no way. Oh my God. And that just brought back all the memories of what I was looking at in India and thinking, oh my God, this is so mad. This is so mad. And then from that, I suddenly discovered a couple of other channels, as you do. And that was in 2015. And it was exploding all around me. I just couldn't believe what was going on with this whole revival of this whole knowledge, or I don't know what it's been, but this explosion of awakening amongst so many people to this realization, you know, and then obviously from 2015 up until now, I think I've been down every single flat earth rabbit hole and every other rabbit hole that you could possibly go. Right. All of us have, you know. You go through those phases of kind of like, oh my God, and then you get to, you know, you go through the shock, you know, and the realization and all of that. But because I'd had an experience a long time ago in the 80s of seeing something that now here was the affirmation, it wasn't too traumatic. Do you see what I mean? It wasn't difficult for me to just accept it. It was very easy to accept.
You just knew that.
Pardon?
It's not that you didn't know, like you knew. It's not something you think now, you know.
It's something you know, and it was something I knew then because of what I saw as a teenager, and you just feel it, and you've got the whole world around you telling you different. So you go through adolescence and you go through youth, totally oblivious to all of that because you're experiencing life, right? You're too busy experiencing life to really sort of look at what is going on around you in the you know. But things never sort of sung true with me. I was always very, very skeptical of all of it, all the science and school and all that, you know. So it's yeah.
It's a lie, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's enormous. It's absolutely
that James is doing, which James will talk about in a minute. But
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to take up too much time.
No, that's okay. We'd like a bouncing hangout, you know, everybody talking. Yeah. But so yeah, and since then, what's the bit that gets you the most, and what's the bit that fascinates you the most, you know, about all this?
Well, I think that the thing that annoys me the most is in my sort of, I wouldn't say it's the belief. I really feel that there's more land. I think we've been kept in this like section for a long, long time, and cultures and religious cultures and all of this has been kind of created around that within this sort of centered area. But I think there's much, much more. And I think people prior to this control system had access, you know, to all these different areas. And I think lands just go on and on and on. I don't think there's an edge. I don't believe that. I don't know. I think as a creation, if you want to get spiritual about it, as a creation, I think a creator would create something that is infinite. To me, it's infinite lands, infinite islands that just go on and on and on. But we're not able to go on. And that's what frustrates me the most, is the fact that there aren't enough people waking up so that we can sway something somehow so that we can get people to travel further. That's what's really frustrating, because people like myself and most of us are powerless. You can't do anything. You can't go anywhere. You know, we know the reality. We know it's flat. We know they're stopping us from going any further. That's the most frustrating thing for me, is that we have this knowledge. There's such a small percentage of people that have this amazing knowledge that no one really gets it. You know, it's so frustrating. After all these years knowing this, you know, it's like, oh, it gets me sometimes. It's like, come on, you know.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy that other people don't see it, isn't it?
Well, I mean, especially with the NASA stuff. I mean, it's so obvious, so bodgy and fake and rubbish. Like, people don't even like pay the attention to it. That's the trouble. They don't look at any of it. Being told something either at school or by other people or through television, one flash of image. They just don't look any further. It's so weird.
It's an observation.
Pardon?
You've made an observation.
Yeah. I mean, luckily now I've moved to a place like Glastonbury where everyone's pretty much on an alternative kind of path, and you know, open to a lot more ideas and other ways of looking at things. But most people really. Anyway, please let someone else talk.
Oh no, it's great talking to you. It's nice when you actually have one of your chat room on the panel with you.
It is pretty cool, I must admit. It's really nice to actually say something, get involved a bit, you know. Yeah, I've always wanted to come and sort of talk about this, obviously, to people outside of this small group of people that I can talk to about. Not many people you can talk to about it, really. Most people just switch off, kind of look at you funnily.
Without sounding like rude to any of us or even categorizing us, and in a minute we're going to listen to James.
Yeah.
Everything around flat earth or what we're waking up to is it's quite intellectual, isn't it? And I think a lot of people are prepared for it. Once James talks, you know, you've got to, you know, listen to James, because he's saying rather a lot.
But it's just,
he's a very intellectual man. And you know, look at James Marsh and his work. I just
absolutely fantastic presentation, so good. I really enjoyed listening to all of that.
He did do that, hang out with Sun and Moon, but then he did his own presentation. I mean, he's come along so far in such a short period of time. He's such a great man as well. Really nice man. I've met Dave Marsh.
People, a lot of educated people. You know, I've met people that are sort of, you know, PhDs, and they just don't want to talk about it.
Sorry, you're just bouncing a bit there on volume. We keep losing you a little bit.
Okay. Is that a bit better?
Sorry. Yeah, just talk.
Okay, most people, especially PhD level, they don't want to talk about anything. They kind of block. They kind of go and glitch out. You know, I've had several confrontations with with people that are PhDs in physics, and they don't even want to talk about it. They can't even open up to it. It's just like, come on, just have a conversation about it. You know, bounce some ideas around. They just kind of go, oh, it's cognitive dissonance, you know, that I didn't really ever suffer from that. It was just kind of a natural, well, yeah, that it's so obvious. It was so obvious to me, you know, anyway.
Yeah, we've all had that waking up thing, and it is a bit hard because we can only really talk to each other, can't we?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I think, like, you've trusted me to be your mom and whatever it is, and now I'm crazy. Right, okay. But that was really interesting, and thanks. I hope you'll chime in a minute. But we'll go over to James. But James, we'll talk a little bit, and then let us ask questions.
I'll tell them.
Because James is very detailed.
Yeah, you know, I'll say this, right? What you said there. This is like, this is, you know, the kind of thing, your experience with the world there. This is really standard. I've had that problem of people, you know, seemingly the obvious people to turn to that understand the level of thought about it, completely disinterested in it. And like New Zealand is difficult that way because the whole practice of this problem is very strong here. It's very strong here. And but the thing about communicating is that, you know, consciousness so you become consciousness aware, you become conscious, and this is this awakening thing. And the difficulty with communicating with people is they're so hardwired to the unconscious way of thinking, and this is kind of what has brought about our civilization. And my discovery I've made is a super duper sci-fi story, man. It's the most sci-fi story ever in the world, because for me, I come from the exact opposite direction that you've come from. What can I ask your name again?
Nicolas.
Nicolas. Hey, Nicolas.
Right.
Yeah, I've come from the entirely opposite direction to you. So I grew up in the country, and both my parents were really depressed, so they never talked. Okay, so I formed a relationship with the natural environment where they had these big hills right behind the house, man. Well, like, you know, probably 5 kilometers away, but big hills, big trees. You know, there was a river, and so my spiritual awakening was with like the actual earth. And I could hear it whispering to me, and there was this whole experience with some dreams I had, and so I've come from the opposite direction a lot of people have come from to get to this point of this realization of the flat Earth question. And yeah, so it's not. See, the thing is, I want to tell you something, but consciousness, right? See, I channel consciousness, man. That's all I'm about, man. And so, you know, so describing the problem isn't the thing for me. Knowing how the format exists is the thing to me. And so the super duper sci-fi things going on where the human being has this event in their lives, and every single person has this event, right, which is being born. And I say that is the event of birth that culture shocks anxiety into existence. And so the real thing of that is that anxiety, as we know it, as the world knows it, right, we think it's a negative thing. We think it's a mental illness thing, and it's like this thing. But I say that anxiety exists 97% in the imperative, which means that everyone in the world, because of the culture shock event of birth, ends up believing that anxiety is wisdom. And when you believe that anxiety is wisdom, it evaporates the concept of anxiety. And secondly, if you believe that anxiety is wisdom, it evaporates the concept of wisdom as well. And this is the terms that language has been invented and developed, and civilization has been developed. And so we actually haven't even left the caves, really. And the world's hierarchy has been developed along those lines of people that replicate the function of anxiety being seen as credible by the majority who believe in courage, because courage acknowledges anxiety. Okay, so that's the start of the 3-hour lecture I would call that. But here's something like this another thing party to what you're saying is the spirituality of Caucasian people. Okay, spirituality of Caucasian people. And I believe that for quite a long time now, that you get this culture shock event of birthright, which immediately then makes it look like the physical world is reality. Okay, that's the thing of it, right? And then, so according to our spirituality, our values, and our our aspirations spiritually, it's about creativity. That's a big component of consciousness, is being creative and communicating, right? And so what we've got now, fast forwarding it to now, right? We've got so much stuff around us, like you wouldn't believe, man, like just literally billions of objects in any kind of given place. Like I live in Christchurch, New Zealand, billions of objects, man. And it's like these things, right?
Yeah.
Video games, right? Good example, right? There's just thousands and hundreds of thousands of man hours work to make a video game. And so what I'm saying is that we've got so much evidence of our spirituality all around us, we've forgotten what it is. It now appears we've forgotten that creativity is our spirituality. And really the first world civilization that we all aspire to and appreciate is so loaded with this, and because of the instance of the political, which is governed by this, it's actually conceptualized by anxiety and the political nature of anxiety and the political correctness of anxiety. Okay, we're totally distracted from the fact that creativity is our spirituality. And I think what's going on in the world is that we're getting really pissed off that we're stagnant. There's no real creativity anymore. Because I think this, right, in the economic terms, is proof, evidence, right, of this going on, is that, you know, for all 200 years or something, there's been these giant discoveries that produce huge industries and millions of jobs, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, that hasn't happened for about 50 years. That has not happened for about 50 years. And that's why really things are stagnating in the West. We haven't had this normal expression of consciousness. It's being, you know, consciousness is being ignored for that reason. And they're shoving heaps of, like, they're changing the social makeup of the West. And to try and accommodate this thing missing, when actually what's really driving the revolution is that we don't see the acknowledgement of consciousness, and we need some new amazing example of creativity, and so that's what I've thought very recently. We've got so much creativity, which is our spirituality, around us. We've forgotten that it is our spirituality. And so I've gone from the Druid thing of thousands of years ago, pre-religion times, to 100,000 years, which was all about creativity, respecting nature, and being just completely amazed that we're even here. And this is like, what the? You know, consciousness has made us here as a statement of creativity. We're an expression of consciousness, and we are totally not living up to that at all. And so this is this awakening thing. And so, as you say, a lot of people, it'll be difficult to shift conventional wisdom. That's really what is it here.
Yeah.
We have to overwrite conventional wisdom with our spirituality. And this is the thing. Because your thoughts there, Nick, about how you felt as a little kid.
Yeah.
This is what, you know what, if you ask every little kid in the world, okay, this thing, and this was politically credible subject, which it is to little kids. This is how we can overwrite conventional wisdom. And so my tech is about that. It's a way, it's something tangible that attends to this issue today, which is a huge problem of anxiety, and it is also a means to design what's on the other side of the paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And so there you go.
James.
Yeah, hi, Karen.
James, Astral. Someone's got to hear myself.
Your audio's horrible.
Is it? I can hear you.
Yeah, no, I can hear you, and it's not too good. What was that? Say it again.
I was just going to say Astral's joined us. Hi, Astral.
Hi, Astral.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Astral.
So nice to be on a panel with people that I subscribe to. That's so cool. Just had to.
I'm sat here just listening. But has anyone got any questions for James? Because I believe that's what Karen asked before.
I kind of I kind of had one regarding the technology buildup. You said something the technology, what hasn't happened in 50 years?
Yeah, that's right, man.
We get these industries like, whatever they are, automobile, computers. These create a lot of jobs.
But that's not
certainly,
new, man. That was only new when they invented the PC. That was 1978 or something.
right.
I remember I was 9, right? Oh. So yeah, I went to school at high school. I was in high school. I finished high school in 1984, and we had a room full of these really the first kind of commercially available computers, and one they built from Radio Shack, and when they were designing codes, they were doing codes and that, and so really that hasn't changed at all. I mean, effectively, the computer has not changed since it was invented. Actually, the interface has changed. The interface has got much better. But what the computer does has not changed one bit. It's just information storage and retrieval and presentation, right? And so really, that's what I'm talking about. There actually hasn't been any giant new thing for a long time, and it's probably very confusing for people on the spiritual level, right? Because we seemingly are much more.
Sorry, you said that there hasn't been any advancement or whatever. What about these D-wave computers and quantum computing?
They're a waste of time.
None of us can get our hands on any of them.
No. But I mean, if they are as powerful as what they're saying they are, I mean, we should be afraid actually of them, because I mean they are incredible.
I'll say this right now. See, this whole lack of cognition, as Nick pointed out earlier, is actually willful. People are willfully seeming like there's cognitive dissonance there, like really grand, giant hypocrisies going on. How are you going to feed a machine, right? How are you going to feed a machine that can do 1 million calculations a second, right? How are you going to feed that machine with enough information to make use of that? The thing is that we don't need that. There are some instances that might be plausible, right? That there is a need for that because it's just really that difficult. But generally, there's going to be, I can see this, right? See, they've got this AI thing going on, right? And this is a giant lie as well. AI seems like a really good idea if people are ignorant that people exist. You know what I mean? They think they need to do this because they're actually completely ignorant of other people. And this is the bombastic obnoxiousness of anxiety and friggin' the more aggressive forms of anxiety, that people are completely ignorant of other people. And that's this willful cognitive dissonance showing up as a political thing. And so for the political thing, the people replicating the function of anxiety will use AI to strengthen their political position against the silent majority, which are asking more and more assertive questions of them. And they'll seek to actually increase their political position and protectionism by promoting AI. And so that's what's going on with that. And but you know what? All that doesn't matter because consciousness doesn't care about yesterday. And it's consciousness is interested in forgiving because it wants to get forward traction. It doesn't want to hang around with a problem. Problems are stupid. It wants traction going forwards. And so this is why we forgive. This is the 10 Commandments. It's because of Caucasian spirituality, not religion. It's common sense to us.
James, just to see what other people say now. It's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
Nicolas, what do you reckon about what James just said?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of it. I do understand what he's trying to say. It's very interesting. It does make a lot of sense.
Yes, like I was saying, it's from the perspective of understanding the mechanism. It's not the observation. It is understanding how it the mechanism of it works, right?
Yeah.
And so when I've got that perspective, you can see these different things, how these different things are working together.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing, you know. And so I'll just say, if I can just extend this little bit,
James.
now when you're talking consciousness,
James, sorry, brother, let me just interrupt you. Please, is it possible that you could probably say it in a sentence in more or less layman's terms? Because you have to imagine, if there's new people to this channel or whatever that are new to you, it's very deep. But you know, if you know, like in a kind of a paragraph or something, if you could, like,
I know what you're saying. It's
so
very,
that people understand it easier. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
Apologies, but it's very difficult because channeling consciousness, right, without being in the jurisdiction of the 8 laws, which minimizes consciousness down to 10% expression, there is actually a huge amount more data. Consciousness can perceive extremely detailed nuances. Okay, and if you're not channeling consciousness, and it's kind of more through the language, if you put it, that's why it's way less detailed, and that's why people communicate differently. That's why the human race communicates all different groups communicate a different way. And that's why courage and anxiety speak virtually different languages, and which is the two ends of the pendulum. So I'll just say that, because I know there's an issue with that. There is. To bring others forth, this must be observed, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, you're very articulate with your words, and each word is powerful, James. It's a very deep subject that you just need to talk a bit and then just have a little bit of a breath so that people can take it all in. I'm not having a go against you, James, because I think you're a very clever man. You've written a book, you do your own things,
Yeah.
He is trying to get schools to change. I mean, take my hat off to you, James.
Yeah, well, I would like school education to be more like children, okay? Because you look at children are enthusiastic, they're bursting with cheerfulness, they're excited, they're enthusiasm, they're really, the glass is absolutely half full, if not all full. And school is not like children at all. And so I've got my thing here.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't even send them to school, not those kind of, because we know they're just bullshit, half of it anyway. We know that for fact.
Right.
James, we were just talking to Nicolas before. He's got a 6-year-old. So how do you feel about education, Nicolas?
Well, I don't know, education is a bit weird with me. My father is retired now, but he's an ex-private school headmaster. So I had education, indoctrination from day one for myself. That's what took me to India in the first place, was my father's job. So I was very much in environments where indoctrination was the key. But I don't know, I mean, I'm quite lucky in the sense that because of my traveling, my mind was so open by just experience of being in a different culture and different religions and different outlooks, that I wasn't really affected by school. I kind of rebelled against school because of my dad's position. So it helped me. It helped me not have any layers. So with things like flat Earth, it's so easy to accept and understand it because the indoctrination really wasn't such an issue. You know what I mean? Because I fought against the system from the beginning anyway. So I blocked it all out. I just wanted to spend the whole time in the art room, you know.
That's right.
How do you feel your daughter facing all this then?
Pardon?
How do you feel with your daughter facing all this then?
It's really weird, but at the end of the day, we're still within a system. You can't raise your flags and go, oh, you know, and start shouting against it, because what are you going to do? You're just going to, within the system we're at, she's got to understand and that she's got to learn was at school. But on the other hand, she's been given a different perspective from myself and from my wife. So she's got other knowledge, but at the same time, she also knows that she's got to remember stuff. She's got to regurgitate the school stuff, because in order for her to progress, she's got to do that. Do you see what I mean? So trying to instill that into her mindset now is what we're trying to do. But at the same time, she's surrounded by flat earth. She hears it from me. She hears sun and moon group. She hears all this stuff going on.
Oh.
I listen to so much stuff that she hears it, and it's going into her subconscious. And we talk about it. And she says it's, you know, she laughs about the ball earth. I mean, it's quite funny, but, you know, at the same time, she needs to know that school is school. And one day maybe it will change. It would be amazing to see that whole system change, but we're a long way off, I think, for that.
Got to start somewhere, though.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think just planting individual seeds within our children is the way it's going to progress, in a sense. Do you see what I mean? Just expanding minds, giving different perspectives. She may rebel against my perspective. You know, she may just become a complete globalist, but at the same time, she's been given access to a very, very broad array of subjects, not just flat Earth, because me and my wife are very interested in many, many, many subjects. So she's surrounded by an intellectual, if you could say, a kind of intellectual environment, in that sense, a free thinking environment. You know?
Well, that's good. And your wife's for all this, is she, as well?
Yeah, she's got her own thoughts, and I mean, who knows what it is? Who knows where we are? We don't know that. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it is.
Not with me, though.
It seems flat, you know. Water's got to sit in a container of some sort. Where are we? I think there's more land. I think it goes on, but who knows? Who knows? Who knows what this is? You know?
It's a bit crazy, isn't it? It's 2018.
Yeah.
And people like James,
yeah.
and Dave's on Crow 77, Russian Viz, the list goes on. Whoever, I just pick those names out. All I'm picking it all.
Yeah.
Just the layers and layers of lies and
layers. I mean, we've all been doing it. I think a lot of it, who don't have, you know, a lot of stuff on channels or putting up videos like myself.
Can I just say though, because you have to blame NASA, because if NASA hadn't, you know, done all these like videos and whatever, you know, I've just heard like.
Oh, NASA, man. Yeah.
If it wasn't for NASA doing these, like, making all these, you know, things that people are questioning, of course we're questioning them, you know, and everyone knows, and if no one does, listen to this: the ISS station, space station, there's no pictures of it being built. No. I mean, it's incredible. That
so bad.
That is big ever. I mean, ever, right? And yet they built it in space. So how did they? Okay.
How did they get that there? That's really interesting, right?
No, I haven't answered that. I can answer to speak to that. I think that because we're truly consciousness, we're spirits having a human experience, right? Now, I think what it is how science fiction, right, which is kind of NASA, but in the pop culture, I think it's been conceptualized by how consciousness feels about being a human.
Yeah.
We're operating independently. We're going around the place. We're getting into different situations with other humans, and this anxiety thing is making us defensive, and we've got our groups, and then it's like and there's all this like competition, okay, and this is kind of stylistically represented as science fiction, where we're being represented as a spaceship going around having all of its little dramas. And NASA's kind of the same thing, this aspiration of going out there, and you know, and so this is because people don't know consciousness exists. They're going down that rabbit hole, and they're furiously digging the rabbit hole deeper, and And so all the while, this thing is in this, what I say, it's not the elephant in the room, it's that we are living inside an elephant.
Yeah.
And so there's all these things around us that validate this perspective.
Yeah.
Okay? And because the real initial event is when consciousness had the culture shock event of birth, that materializes the values of anxiety into existence. Okay. And this is what's been going on ever since. And we're actually still at that very first moment where anxiety was culture shocked into existence, and it appeared in the mind, and with the baby that does not possess language. And actually, secretly, the world has tried to keep people at that moment where they keep having these great ideas of expression that validate that anxiety is wisdom. And so this is the NASA thing. I mean, what drives the mind to perceive that that's of value, you know? And so I'll just say, though, this is all very unique. There's no real precedent to judge what is happening to the world at all. And so that's why we have this really great opportunity to create a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's to me, like, coming from my perspective, as I was saying, the real trick is to change conventional wisdom from the belief that anxiety is virtuous to that consciousness is virtuous. And you know what? Every little kid ever has a strong bond with consciousness, man. And so that's the thing. That's what we need to do. And to be
James,
yeah,
can I ask you something?
of course.
I'm just echoing a bit, though. I can hear my voice echoing. But anyway, I just came across a bit of this video the other day, and they were talking about the Mandela effect. And what they were saying was that the reason that there's the Mandela effect is for those that have woken up. It's not there for those that are asleep. It's only there's only a Mandela effect for those that have woken up. What do you reckon to that?
Well, I believe absolutely there is a completely different reality once you've woken up. And what I put it is with my tech, right? And you know, you've got the 8 laws of anxiety, and you know, qualifying anxiety as a political entity, you can actually literally, figuratively hold it in your hand and look at it. Now, when you figuratively hold it in your hand and look at it, separate it from yourself, and from where and with what are you looking at it with, right? So this little experience proves that consciousness is real. And then people had this epiphany. And what they do is they then suffer what I'm calling spiritual agoraphobia, to where beforehand, inside the elephant, you're inside the elephant. That's all you've ever known, and that's the only thing that's been reality ever, and there's never been any other option other than to think like that. And there's all these things around us that actually mandate that is the truth.
There are other options, but they just didn't us. But that's what happens when you wake up. You realise that there's other options.
That's right. And so my way of putting it is you after that effect, which takes a billionth of a second, you know, people experience what I call spiritual agoraphobia, going from that little thing to this massive limitless expanse, which is actual reality, actually. And then they realize this has actually been reality all the time. And so their perspective changes. Language is able to change when that has happened. And that's why I have all these senior data points. I've got 2 vids up there. I just put up on my channel. And the first vid is about it's about the revelation of the 8 laws plus the senior data points post discovery. Okay, and there's 39 I got, and I've figured out a few other ones since. And then the latest one is a chat about the paradigm shift. And you're going from inside this little political construct of the 8 laws of anxiety to outside in the limitless expanse of the universe. This is the thing of it, that little kids already have the universe. You know what I mean? It's when we start using language that anxiety becomes a political entity, governing language and thought, and then totally governing the perception of the world view and all that. But before that, they only have the universe, right? And so to hang on to that, to nurture that, to give high quality, things to, learn about like that, like just like as a little kid, I couldn't talk and I was running around and I was just outside in the garden. I so understand why cats just sit there staring into space. Okay, because they're embracing consciousness, man.
Absolutely, I got to.
Anyway.
Hey, as Nicolas, what I just said then, that's what James has said. What do you think about the Mandela effect? I just caught it. It said the Mandela effect is only there for people who've woken up.
It's the Mandela effect. Yeah, it's weird, right? But it happened to me as a child as well, and it's happened to my wife as a child as well. That particular books, memories.
Okay, can I just say one thing? That Star Wars, that golden robot, whatever it was called, C-3PO, was there?
With the leg,
if I'm not wrong. He was all gold. Don't tell me he had a silver leg, because if I was a kid and I saw a silver leg on a gold robot,
it was all gold. I had the figure,
and I didn't. So he was definitely all gold.
All gold.
There is something going on, definitely, because I remember that. I'm not wrong.
Can I say something about that? It might be an overt thing that they're trying to. They're doing this conspiracy.
You don't think we've caught a paradox, do you? And everything's going to change now. And that's what it's about. Everything's changing because the people are waking up, so it's causing a paradox. It's not the way they wanted it. The way they were going was, but once the people start waking up, it changes everything. It's like a paradox. Anyway, I don't know.
I know. Can I say something there, Karen? I know it might sound crazy to a lot of people, but consider this: that this chemtrails are created a Skynet. You've got CERN that's doing all of these experiments with weird shit that's going on there. They do these like voodoo dances before anything happens, and I believe that they've done like a paradigm in like this, some sort of a dimension, because just so many differences with one thing and another, and between one year and another year, even dates and things just don't match up. So I do they're seeing who is reacting to it, almost like a litmus test, and who isn't reacting to it,
Thanks, Astral. Nicolas, what were you saying?
No, nothing really. Just going back to the Mandela effect, just as having, obviously this has come out in the last few years, but I have memories as a child, and my wife has memories as a child, reading particular books, like child stories, and then the story's changing, and going back to the book and looking at the page, and it's a different story or a different image. And I have very, very strong memories of that. And then, obviously this whole thing's changing. I don't know. It's a strange one. I don't know.
Yeah, I sort of have one where it's you kind of forget a lot of this stuff. But I remember actually Mandela dying, and they said that he died, and then everybody forgets, and then he becomes president, and then he dies again.
Yeah,
exactly.
Him dying, and then you forget about it.
About that actually. Do you remember a woman called Jane? There's a woman called Jane Goodall that is involved with chimpanzees. Okay, Jane Goodall. She's like a zoologist or whatever, right? This woman, years ago, I was a 13-year-old out in India. I wrote a letter to this woman. Right, this is absolutely serious. I wrote this letter to this Jane Goodall in Africa because she was studying and looking after chimpanzees. Okay, and quite famous in her area. Anyway, I had a letter back from her, saying, oh, due to, I was only a 13-year-old, so it was quite amazing getting a letter back from her. And she wrote a book, in the Shadow of Man or something, one of her first books. She wrote a letter back saying, due to political situations, blah, 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 in Africa, she can't take students, so on and so forth. Anyway, I sort of dismissed it and grew up and didn't hear anything for years. And then I think it was like my dad or somebody saying that Jane Goodall had died, okay? That Jane Goodall had died. And it was like, oh my God. And I had this whole like memory of her and this, you know, these letters that I'd written to her and everything. And so many people verified this fact that Jane Goodall had died. And then years later, I suddenly discovered that she was still alive. And that blew me away. That was one of my own personal Mandela effects with this woman, Jane Goodall. And several other people, including my parents and all these other people, thought she died. And also, Karen, I did have that same thing with Nelson Mandela. I had that. I had that.
Because we were very young then, you know, it's just a young person. You get married, you forget, and then you know, you probably weren't even interested. You just suddenly remember. I remember that now.
I mean, I'm nearly 48, so I remember a lot of that. It's so mad.
I think Mandela effect you asked me about. I actually didn't know what it was, so I just Googled it. I just realised something else recently. The Mandela effect is a very real thing, because you get the. Now I've got to bring this up, right, to put the point here. The Holocaust thing in the Second World War. Okay, this is just rebooting the Jesus idea, and it seems like, for me, this is proving what I've discovered is true, because if it doesn't have the element of a lie, then it's not the truth. Because a fact inside the elephant is a fact, but outside the elephant, it's not a fact. You need a true fact. So I've coined the term true fact versus fact. Fact is a fact according to the lie, and this is this thing where people just can't. They're completely heartbroken that they can't get out of the elephant.
Yeah,
and I think that causes the Mandela effect. And this is a great thing, because like I haven't seen anything yet that this discovery doesn't fit exactly, actually, which is something.
James, do you get people positive towards what you're saying, or do you get the blank thing that a lot of us get whenever you try to tell anything and people go, what?
Yeah, because New Zealand, right? New Zealand is a good old funny place, man, because there are a lot of people that are really, really depressed and they can't communicate. They're averse to communicating, to the point where I just read this report on this government department that there is this culture, basically, that has been driven by people that believe that anxiety is wisdom. They're actually hostile. They're averse to communicating. They don't have very many meetings and all that. And it's very common. And this is why we have tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand. Right? So you consider what I'm doing, what I've done, and what I'm doing, what I want to do, and you get tall poppy syndrome, which is if you have a successful thing in your day and you come home and you say, oh, I've done this great big successful thing, people will take you down emotionally. People will attack you emotionally to make you unhappy because you have done something successful. That's tall poppy syndrome. This is a very New Zealand thing to do. And so this is actually what I've done is the revelation of the 8 rules, right? It's actually a declaration of war against this. It's a declaration of war against this, where if people want to do that to me, I will be openly hostile to them. And I'm sick of it, man. I've had absolute guts for it. My life's been ruined like 5 times because they win. You know, I channel consciousness, and I always have. I've retained it since I was a small child, like Nick was saying, and I believe many people are doing this. But they get very advanced strategies. If you're a warrior and you're fighting against them, and you're showing some success, there's these advanced strategies they use to force you to go down, because this is actually the law of New Zealand. And that's why I know that this business of the anxiety being believed of as wisdom is the truth, because that's how they are following exactly the behavior of anxiety as it events in the mind. And so approaching these people, businessmen are actually quite good, because they're all about an answer. They want an answer. They want to make more communication happen. They need to. They are booming. They are expressing themselves outwardly, and so they're good people to approach. But you know what? The media. I talked to Karen at MediaWorks, who they say they're the chief news organisation in New Zealand, and I told her, you know, and this is, if you got to put it in a real short space, Astral, it is actually a matter of being under duress, because you've got to observe the formalities to consciousness, and if you have to act in a way where you're not observing the formalities of consciousness, that is the win for anxiety, right? That is the thing of it, you know. And but she agreed that what I had to say was extremely interesting, because New Zealand is totally rife with anxiety. All the television media are about that. There's like one point there was 27 hours of cooking shows on TV, and there's been cop shows all hardcore through. So this business of raising children.
Yeah, but we know TV is only propaganda, don't we? Programming, pure programming. It's nothing good. It's all shit. We don't watch it.
I know. Look, I think that's right. The revelation of that, Lords, is an amnesty, because you know what? The TV thing and the government thing and all those other people, it is not a conspiracy. Okay, the closest I can get to conspiracy that they're doing is that they are instinctively intuiting the political correctness of anxiety, right? And that's how they seemingly, this giant group of disassociated people, can all act with the same purpose, what it seems like the same purpose. They're actually all instinctively intuiting political correctness of anxiety from their perspective, and that's why they're all kind of looking like they're doing the same thing, and that looks like a conspiracy. But they're not. They're just people in these places that are in that situation, and they're doing the best thing they can at the time, and they honestly believe that the people think that anxiety is wisdom, which is what they believe as well, because they're just people, and they seemingly want a high quality experience for that. And starting with the education of kids, I'm thinking any kid that sees this, and I know because I've talked to kids about this, at a very fundamental level, the 8 laws of anxiety, qualifying anxiety as a political entity with its 8 laws, is something tangible to think about. And that is what consciousness loves, right?
I think education is the most bizarre thing. Even for us and little children, you've got the teacher, they're back to the children, just writing on a blackboard and telling everybody to write it down. And they're not integrating with the children. What they've got to do is get through the what do you call it, the syllabus, get through the syllabus, get through it. It's like,
there's no nurturing
anymore. Everything's to do. I mean, I'm not saying it was good before, but about 10 years ago, everything became figures. Even children at nursery schools, they have to even at nursery schools they have to monitor them, and there has to be big.
Can I just say something?
People.
Can I just say something?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I met, was it 4 guys last weekend. I was coming home and I wanted to sit down. I'm an old man, you know, I always say. And I'm sat down on this bench and there's these 4 guys sat there, you know, and they're obviously on the way into town because it was this like carnival week and what have you. And we started talking about conspiracies, 9/11, the moon landings, blah, 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 blah. To cut a long story short, I'm asking them about their education and how much they think, or are they like taught, listen, read this, write this down, remember this, you're going to be tested upon it, like, you know. And they agreed, well, yeah, we're not taught to think. We're taught to, like, you know, learn how to read, we learn how to listen, and we learn how to copy things and remember and regurgitate that shit, you know. Simple as that. But they agreed with me, and they were young guys in their 20s, you know. And yeah, I had them talking about the flat earth and one totally disagreed. I'm trying to recall now. One totally disagreed. He believed in the moon and all that stuff, that they landed on the moon. Another one was a bit dubious. He didn't know. And the other two, I'm not sure about. I can't remember. But the flat earth business part, one was definitely going to look into it because he was interested, you know, just in what I was saying about the curvature and stuff, you know, looking. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, cool, man. I understand what you mean. If I can just quickly say, that's probably a leading thing what's enabled me to discover the 8 laws and write the 8 laws and the revelation of the 8 laws. It's because all the social media for the last 10 years, this has allowed the human race's true colours to show. And that's what these young people are thinking. They've not only got the true colours of the human race going on, but they've got access to a lot of alternative opinion, which consciousness loves. So it's enabled them to retain their faith and their relationship with consciousness, even in the face of all this. Because don't forget, these teachers, right? This is probably happening in your country, right? But in New Zealand, right? Like Labour government, right? Feministic Labour government overloaded the teachers with paperwork. And a few years ago, they had this situation where they messed with the teachers' pay a whole lot, right? And a big component of this, the motivation in this, is to just distract the teachers from teaching. Okay, and that's just something that's been going on in New Zealand a whole lot. So when you're thinking of education, it's not only how the kids are dealing with what they've been taught. The teachers have been messed with as much as the kids. Okay, so because teachers love teaching because they love consciousness. They want to nurture children up, and that's a wonderful thing to do that. And
so, James, can I ask you something then? Is it that basically that if you've woken up, then you've got consciousness, and if you haven't woken up, you haven't?
So you're unconscious, and that's a good way. That's a very good way to say it. If you're a conscious person or an unconscious person. And this is like the truth of it, man. And that's why you get people that are good people that are bad people. This absolutely dictates this thing where people are being nasty, and you know, and because they are all the behaviours of the unconscious, of the zombie class, right? And just one thing I'll say, and it's like, a lot of people in prison should be let out of prison because the reaction they did to get put in prison was purely down to having completely come to the end of their rope because they'd been forced there by this anxiety mindset, pummeling. And so if people in prison have this tangible thing put to them, I believe that a lot of people can be let out of prison.
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
What it is.
I'd just like to interject just quickly.
Victims
Karen?
of victims, and that's what our prisons are full of.
Karen?
They're never dealing with the problem, are they?
No. Karen?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to bud out now. My arm's hurting quite a bit, so I'm going to make a move. But it's been lovely being here and speak to you soon. All right.
Oh, thank you, Nicolas. Nicolas broke his arm moving. But anyway, it's been great that you come on, Nicolas.
Oh, it's been great. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks a lot to everybody.
Yeah, cheers for that, Nicolas.
Thanks a lot.
I'm sorry I missed the beginning, but I will listen to it again. No worries.
Nice one.
It was cool to hear about the Himalayas a little bit.
All right. Cheers all. Bye.
Thank you, darling. Yeah, very nice to meet Nicolas. Yeah, they're victims of, you know, and yeah, they do really horrible things, but they're still victims of a victim. And so they're not dealing with any of them. They're just making everything worse. And those they put in prison, they don't come out often wanting to be any better. They come out worse because of the way they've now been treated in prison.
Well, yeah, that's right. The political optics coming out, right? The political optics that they get with people on the outside is you should still do the same thing, because the underlying philosophy is that anxiety is wisdom, right? And it's anxiety that's been the genesis of their dysfunction. And so actually at the consciousness level, they're being told you should just keep doing the same thing. And on another level, it's that parents teach their kids to be like that through experience and through political optics. And so they do that growing up. It's all, to me, it's all about those first years when the baby...
Well, with what you know. And a lot of this information, where you've made your mind up about how you're going to live your life, happened when you were a kid. And the ones that are telling you are the victims. So in this program, this big program they've got, it is horrible, though. I mean, it's amazing that any of us turn out okay after what they do.
This is
Do you
true.
know what? With robot wives, what was that called? Stepford wives. That's all they want, is like a Stepford wife life.
Yeah, that's right, because that's anxiety wants everyone to be a robot. Like, you get all the politicization of the personal sphere that the media has been selling the West, right? The real optimum outcome they're after is to make everywhere culture neutral. It's to turn the West into the Stepford wife, right? And so again, the revelation of that fits exactly what the behaviour is, and because that's the general thing in New Zealand. That's what they're really after. They're pushing multiculturalism really hard, and it's to make New Zealand culture neutral. So then this invisible secret society group can be the governance.
Yeah, have you heard of that? Have you heard of that company called the New? What's it called now? The New World Order. Have you heard about that in New Zealand?
Yes. So yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, they had the big plan there.
That's what they've done. They've made sure that nobody really likes each other. Nobody cares. Nobody cares at all. And the only thing that's important is yourself. Just yourself. Not anybody else.
That's the big wedge they're shoving in society. They're pushing feminism hard out, and now they're going on about gender equality. Well, what all the purpose of this is to disassociate men from women. Now I've got to think, what are the media doing? Now I've got this mission on to go down to MediaWorks office down here in Christchurch, right, and put this to them, that when you're pushing feminism and you're pushing gender equality, what does that do to the relationship between father and daughter and mother and son? Okay, that is.
They don't want things like that, do they? They don't want any kind of relationships. That's what they want. They don't want to be in any.
Because secretly they're channeling anxiety and they want the politically correct inspirational.
Sorry to interrupt you, but they've been doing this for such a long time, I mean, not that many years ago, same-sex marriages, they were unheard of and they were, scorned upon. Seriously, people were like, stoned to death in certain countries. Look at how times have changed in such a short time, and now anything goes.
Right, just so
anything goes. And what they're doing is they're diluting society, and they're making everything like everything's. Oh, that's all right. It's getting crazy. It's getting absolutely incredibly crazy. Yeah, sorry. Go on then.
Can I add to that? Let me add to that.
Wait a minute, James. Flat out, dude. Go on then, because you've just come in. Go on, Kenny.
Let me add to that a little bit. It seems that, as you know, it just in my lifetime, from the 60s till now, I mean, every decade it gets ramped up. Everything gets ramped up. Music, TV, it's just getting so ramped up. Raunchier and raunchier. Like you said, Astral, anything goes now. You see it everywhere, and it's just out of control. Go ahead. I yield the floor.
Well, thanks,
I've got
Ken.
plenty to say about this, man. I mean, I'll tell you what. See, the thing is, again, I'll just say again that it's the instinctively intuited political correctness of anxiety. So really, that's why I say that the actual problem is about being unaware of this culture shock event of birth that consciousness has, that brings anxiety, the values of anxiety into existence. That's what's done all of this. Okay, and the thing is, that's what I'm saying. They have the aspiration of making New Zealand culture neutral, because if you could literally ask anxiety, why are you compelled to control everyone? and it wouldn't be able to tell you because it wouldn't.
Haven't they? They've done it with like this one world order. This is what they want, or they have, or it's already here. But yeah, can't quite tell us yet, can they? And then you've got like the European Union or the communism. This is what this is all about.
And can I just say one thing? You know, this Eurovision Song Contest, whenever it was, a while back, with this woman who was a man who was a woman. I don't know what it was. Won with a beard. You know the character. Anyway, what I'm saying is that person won. I mean, it's all to do with this agenda. You know, they want this kind of stuff. And I've heard something that's going to come out soon. I can't remember what it is exactly, but it's something even worse than that. I mean, it's going to blow you away. And people that are not awake to this will just, you know, be like, wow, yeah, well, it's about time. But we that are awake, i.e., myself, I'm not talking about anybody else now. I'm saying if I'm awake to this, right? So when this comes out, I'll be like, yeah, man, I've been expecting this. Like, and it's apparently, I can't remember what it was now. I'm sorry. I forgot the what the person or thing was that it was going to be, but it's something absolutely. It's going to blow you away. You know, I know. I'm laughing, but it was something incredible anyway. So anyway, I yield the floor to.
Yeah, I've got this is the purpose of my political party thing, because to overwrite conventional wisdom, you have to have that national kind of audience thing, and it is imperative we design what is on the other side of the paradigm shift and offer that as the main talking point. We've got to take the bloody center stage away from the anxiety perspective and make the focus what we actually want. And this means actually qualifying who we actually are and who we are, you know, who we are spiritually, right? And because really all of this thing of the political, it's taken the nobility, it's robbed us of the nobility that we actually have while we're just human beings. You know, in the great scheme of things in the universe, we're the most amazing advanced form of life in the universe. This is undeniable. I mean, if we didn't have the Catholic Inquisitions, we would have had computers like 400 years ago. We are amazing, amazing, amazing. And like you were saying there, Astral, before, they've done all this in a really short time frame. Okay, so if you compare that really short time frame to the whole body of history, this is actually extremely incidental. And maybe it's just a necessary event to promote evolution. And so I see it like that, and I see that this is an amnesty for that reason, because really we need to focus on designing what is on the other side of the paradigm shift, and to do that we've got to qualify our spirituality. And that's what I'm focusing on. Because New Zealand is a worst case scenario of them being in control. It's worst case scenario. The media are completely anti-community, because the fact we've had housing bubbles, we've had giant increases of houses, we've got reported worsening statistics, where we're already a world leader of negative statistics in New Zealand, right? Then they you know what, they're actually telling it like it's good news. How about that? It's terrible, man. But yeah, to have what is on the other side of that paradigm shift qualified, and you know, this is imperative we do this, because I want this. I really seriously want this. You know, on behalf of consciousness, speaking for consciousness, this is definitely the only thing going on for me. So to bring everyone into the conversation, to have a qualification of the subject, actually, which is something that's never existed before. I'm getting some very good results, but it's people who are not in control. If people are in control, like middle management up, they are in this bubble of anxiety, because they have to make things happen when they have no means. They're completely disassociated from actually the thing that makes it work, right? And so they just live in this anxiety thing. And so everything above middle management and above is the enemy from a spiritual perspective. And because everyone who's just a normal person, they see this and they recognize it straight away. It's like, right. And so, we've got to design what's next. We have to design what's next as a means to force them into a discussion, and to force them to. They have to put their 2 cents in, and they're going to be saying that, the thing is, they're going to be saying, we've always told you all these problems and problems and problems and problems, and we're all desperate for an answer. And while that's the lie they're telling, okay, this enables them to actually have something that they can't walk away from it, because this attends to not only the problems, but it also is a means to facilitate the solution, which is that consciousness is real. If everyone just understood consciousness is real, then all of this would stop. What is politically credible would change from the replication of anxiety to consciousness. And that's what game on. It's a lot to take on. It's like I was saying before that, consciousness speaks a great volume of data, blah, blah, blah. Sorry. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I only say that because when you actually say these words, the anxiety of, it's quite a mouthful, and
I know. It is. It certainly is. But I got to pay due diligence to the situation, the actual nature of the enemy, the actual truth of the enemy, the power of the enemy, how the enemy maintains its power, and it's largely down to the beliefs of everyone else, how courage acknowledges anxiety. Gotta pay due diligence to the actual thing going on. And it is, consciousness, man. You've got consciousness, everyone's got consciousness, and it's the dynamices and character of consciousness that is the reason.
James, they've made a society that doesn't want to be responsible for itself as well. So that's another reason why people are struggling to wake up. Because if it's fault, why have you got to sort anything out? Because it's someone else's fault. And only when we take responsibility for a lot of ourselves and our lives, get to know who you are, you've got to do these as adults to be able to then go back and help the children later on.
How do they get on with helping children when they believe that apathy is politically correct? Because apathy is completely anti the character of consciousness. And so this is really the political environment that is happening, that we are discussing needs to be changed. Apathy is anti the character of consciousness. And they sell apathy like you wouldn't believe, as you say. And this is what children are picking up on. So there's this massive friction, spiritual friction going on, where what they've been taught is directly at odds with what they believe. And that event where they have to put down what they believe. I've got a video on my Facebook, Jim Carrey on it, right? And that is a marvelous, beautiful video about that, having to, kids are taught to embrace this false character, and they've either got to, if they continue with that, they're going to fall into their grave grasping onto a person that they never were. And this is the thing. This is the actual realm of the spiritual manifesting itself.
Yeah, but that was actually an actor saying those words.
Yeah,
if you take it in that context as well, but
he's not an actor these days, man. He's not an actor these days, eh?
No, but the characters that he has played, I think he's kind of making like a, what's it called, a tale, one of those parables, or like a little parable or whatever.
You could say Jim Carrey, his behaviour in his movies and that.
The truth in plain sight.
It could be that spiritually, right, he's decided a path of life, as you were saying, Karen, where he's gonna give the political optics that he thinks the world's just completely full of it and not worth its time at all. And that's why he's such an overt comedian. See, that's this decision he's made, that It's tricky to explain that, but gee, I promise you, Jim Carrey is not an actor these days at all. He's had his awakening moment. And that video,
Extremely deep in another way. Every video that I see of him now is him bearing his soul or understanding who he is. And wow,
he's giving it up. He's giving up his human persona, and he's making a statement of loyalty to his spiritual self.
He's woke up. That's what he's done. He knows who he is.
Probably took him a horrible thing to happen in his life for it to happen, though. I don't mean that, you know.
He's actually said some nice, profound things, you know, and I recommend that people, if they should, you know, if they've got half an hour to spare, go and have a look, you know. Anyway, I just want to say I have to go to bed. I can't be on this. I've got to say good night to everybody. Thanks for coming on, James. Flat Earth dude. Didn't really get to chat, man. Yeah, it was good seeing you. Good seeing you at Hollywood Boulevard. That was awesome. That really good, really good. Fun. I liked it. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I hope that we'll do it again soon.
All right, we'll do it again.
Okay, thanks, Astral.
All right. Good night, everybody. Bye.
Good night, darling. Hey, Flat Earth dude, as you're there, what do you make of this all then?
It's there's so much information to deprogramming everything that we've learned growing up and going through school and having to go to work and make money, and you know, and we've gotten so it's going to take a small lifetime to scramble it, but we're doing a great job.
How come it didn't get you then? How come it didn't get you then? How come you're a free spirit?
Well, I've been working for myself for 30 years, and that's always a really helpful start, is not having to, you know, owning my time is been very much something that I've always been aware of. I like to own my time. If I want to research flat earth or work or whatever, go to the beach, get away from it, I'm able to do that. So that's probably what's helped me become so relaxed. And if I had to go to a 9-to-5 job, man, I'd be a little frustrated for sure.
James doesn't know, but Kenny has a telescope, and he's captured amazing footage on his channel of these orb things, which I put out on Sun and Moon, and also the lunar balloon, wherever it is, the NASA balloon going across the moon. So you do amazing work as well, Flat Earth dude.
Get the camera out, point it. Sometimes you get lucky, you know. I'm very happy to get lucky occasionally, but it takes effort. If you're not out there, you won't get lucky, you know. So I got to get out there a little bit more, but it's been kind of hot, so hopefully it'll cool off, and I'll do some
just
more footage.
To say, James, that Flat Earth dude, he goes out to the meets and we stream through him, and yeah, we have nights out with Flat Earth dude in America. That's what we've been doing. That's his part to he's like our cameraman, newsman. He's everything. And
Flat Earth newsman.
Yeah, you are.
If I had the cash, I would be out there. See, I'm Southern Hemisphere, man. If I had the cash, I'd be up there with you guys. I'd go and see a lot of people, actually. But they don't. That's the thing. People in New Zealand are poor, and it's a very well-calculated thing that we are poor. Starting in early 1970s, they made New Zealand a welfare state, and it's for the express purpose of making the country poor. That's all there is. And so if I had the mean, I'd be up there in California talking to you guys. Love to go to the Burning Man festival. That would just be an ultimate thing to do.
Yeah, it looks like fun. I've never been.
Man, I just love it. I put videos on the YouTube and just sit there watching it, and it's just a glorious, beautiful thing of consciousness. The real
right?
It's a spiritual experience, and that's what they're actually saying. The whole thing is a spiritual experience, and that was the inspiration of it, to have a spiritual experience of the Caucasian spirituality. I mean, that's all there is to it, man. I mean, fuck. So that'd be a major highlight to go and see that. And I even might have a booth there and stuff, and who knows, man.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we thank
Good.
Flat Earth Dude very much for what he does with us and with our channel and everything. And you, James, very clever man. And to Astral, and to Nicolas, and to Patricia, and to everybody in the chat room.
Chat.
No,
Shout out.
you think I'm clever, Karen? I tell you what, actually, I'm only channeling consciousness, and you all have consciousness too.
Right.
That's my point. I like to just put in there.
It's a really good point right there. Real
Yeah.
simple.
I've only had, see, my relationship with consciousness has been a long time, so I have developed the vocabulary to with the specific purpose of channeling consciousness, and that comes with organizing words in a certain way. You can have new perspective, because that's imperative for the new era, post paradigm shift, is we need new language. Okay, we need new language. And but you know what, I'm only I just channel consciousness, and this is something everyone has, and that's why what I've got here, it's a miracle that it actually works perfectly as an amnesty. And that's the great point, because I don't care about revenge or anything like that. Just to enlighten people to move in a better way, that is just consciousness doing its thing, man. And that's my main focus. Very solution orientated is consciousness. So I'm thinking of organising a Burning Man festival for New Zealand. How about that? That'd be fucking fun. Oh, mate, it is, anywhere that could happen is a great thing, because that is a great thing. It's
well, you
wonderful.
should do at least a Flat Earth meetup in New Zealand.
Yeah, I haven't actually had much. I haven't seen much evidence of the Flat Earth in New Zealand, because the whole media thing is so in the face of the people,
Right.
And the social media thing is really in the face of the people as well. So these big distractions are very strong here, right? It's very strong here, and this is a titanic battle for who is the moral authority, and so that's why I've been approaching these hardcore stalwarts of anxiety view, and which is professors, and I've had zero response from probably 50 university staff that I've emailed, contacted, and I'm thinking of taking it out to the grounds of the university and just handing out stuff at the university, which is very much a next step thing. And so because I know if just one significant
James.
Yep.
Kenny wants to say something. Talk about, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's a great idea. Go to the universities. I've been to some Flat Earth meetups, but last weekend was the first time I went out. Activism on Hollywood Boulevard, and it was interesting. But I want to do it some more. Try to wake people up, man. I don't know, one at a time, two at a time. We'll get there.
Well, look, that's all we can do, and that's what I'm focused on. What will give me more traction, and so the 2020 elections coming, and I know if I'm a party, I can get exposure with that as the vehicle, and you may not realize it, right? You may not realize it, but my thing I've got, my tech here is this is very, very, very flat Earth, because I think the question of the flat Earth isn't about the Earth. It's about the lies. It's about really, it's about the existence of anxiety means that consciousness doesn't exist in the minds of people. And
Right.
that is the thing I'm wanting to actually change, because then we can actually believe, we can embrace our spirituality, which is
Yeah.
what we've got this parasite that has control of our spirituality, and that is why it is harvesting the wealth we create through physical activity and the activity of our minds and our energies. And this is what it's doing. It's parasiting off our spirituality and what we're capable of, right? And this is why there's been zero development of society. We've kind of been stuck in the same pattern since the 1950s, actually.
Right.
And so this is the perspective I have of the problem, and it's what I propose as the solution. And the big ace up my sleeve is that everyone knows they have consciousness. Everyone knows it. All these young kids, we all grow up, we know that consciousness is real. We can feel this energy. You know, this is why love exists. It's because when you see someone you love, automatically one consciousness plus one consciousness equals three consciousnesses. That's how it works in the consciousness realm. So spiritually, where it's like we get this massive expansion of consciousness when we see our friends. And so this is more evidence that consciousness is real, and that the character of consciousness, a major component, is creativity. And this is what I was saying earlier. I'm coming from this from a wholly different direction than what most people come at this from.
Right. You definitely in a different direction.
I'm an engineer. Grew up on the farm, went on farming for 15 years after school, and I've got the strong proclivity to be an engineer, and that's what I think. I've come to the conclusion, because I my experience as a little kid in the country, man, the spiritual thing, this is the most respectable of experiences, man. And this is all I got to say, and I'm fighting for it. I'm fighting for it to have. It's a declaration of war. What I'm doing, I'm declaring war on the system because of this anxiety thing, and I want to win the war. And I've got the means. I've got this artillery piece here, and I'm gonna. They can't challenge it. They can't stop it, because.
Really strange thing, James. We're supposed to be in a free society and have the freedom of speech, but we don't at all.
Oh, no, we don't.
Not really.
Well, even down to the first two laws of anxiety.
They weren't so worried, right? Everybody be able to have a say. Like, like if you say you're a religion, no one says anything anymore. But you say you're a flat earther, it looks like they want to kill you. Like you're not allowed to be a flat earther. So we're discriminated against. You just if it wasn't such a problem, why can't we be? If you can be a Catholic, a Muslim, or whatever it is, if you can be all these, why can't you be? It's just
except a pagan. You're not allowed to be a pagan. They're the bad guys. Now Christianity has they waged a campaign against Flat Earth Society effectively for 500 years, from the 1200s to the 1700s, to eradicate the knowledge of it and to imprint.
I think it's as old as that, James. They changed us into a ball in the 60s. In the 60s, it actually happened. Because that we got television, we got going to the moon, we got NASA lies. It's because of NASA. And then you've got time savings. Everything was happening in the 60s. It happened in the 60s.
Yeah, but it's only a current expression there.
No,
the thing
60s.
The thing was every time I hear
research, the last century, not this one. Newspaper articles were saying that if you go on saying that you live on a ball, you'll be sent to prison, or you could go to court and go to prison, whatever. So only 120 years ago, you could have gone to prison if you talked about being. I don't think it's as old as everybody says, because they've lied about everything. Don't forget.
Well, you know what?
Hundreds of years ago, they thought we were on a ball when they didn't.
No, I think the thing that the ball and flat thing, if you get if you talk about that specifically in a public way, this is a direct challenge to their political power, actually, because it's material to their political power.
Well, I've been listening to Martin Leakey, right? I don't know if this is true. It just sits in my mind. In the early 1800s, there was quite a lot of flooding here in the UK, in Europe, whatever.
Yeah.
There was a lot of flooding going on. And I'm wondering if this is, because don't forget, some of these stories are going to be lost. You know, if you unsettle people, say you're in Syria right now, you'll maybe have your religious ways and whatever it is. You come and live in another country, say like the Western UK, after 2 or 3 generations, they probably, because they're Western now, they've forgotten all their traditions. So we don't even know what's happened a couple of hundred years ago. There's nobody around to talk about it. But I'm wondering, did they go to America because they were getting away from the flooding here? And I think this reset, this last one, happened in the early 1800s. And then we're a result. We have come out of this flooding. So that was the reset. You know, because I just remember, Martin, like all these buildings were there. These huge buildings in America already, because and everywhere, you know, like the people weren't building, they were digging them out. They were digging them out from the mudslides and things. But even America had floods. So I don't know. It's all crazy. Like our whole history is crazy. You can't trust any of it. And you know what? Artists, he researched, right? And documents that NASA have released, it's on a video on Sun and Moon. They already, NASA were talking about a flat plane, and they knew everything was a flat plane, and then they turned it into a ball. And those documents are free. You have to just find them. Artists found them. Late 1990s, they did talk about flat Earth, and then something happened, and then suddenly everywhere flat Earth disappeared for like 20 years, almost like 15, 20 years, until everybody started to wake up now. But the thing about flat Earth is it covers everything, all the lies now. It's about everything.
So it's
about everything you're talking about, because there's just this mass of lies.
Yeah, it is. And so I've just realised, just through what you're saying there, that this business with the flat Earth, it's just, you're seeing, it's about keeping the world in that, you know, that state where they think anxiety is wisdom, and it's just an expression of that. It's a means to create that same outcome in the physical plane that it is happening in the spiritual plane. And it comes to me, right, there's only 2 things that have ever happened. One is an expression of anxiety, and the other is expression of consciousness. And the relationship.
Can I ask you something? You're a very sensitive person, aren't you?
Oh, very.
Yeah. So am I. So is Flat Earth Dude. So is Patricia. I'm sure everybody in the room, we're all mega sensitive people. So that is something, and that will change the consciousness, because we're not dead inside. We're very alive.
Is it being sensitive or perceptive?
Pardon?
See, is it being sensitive or is it being perceptive? Because they are the 2 things.
That you're mega sensitive is the reason that you're open and have woken up, and whatever it is because of that.
Well, I've become much more perceptive. And so this is the thing of the actual, this is an observation. You've got the word sensitive and what it means, but then there's the word perceptive. Now, perceptive covers everything you're talking about when it comes to being sensitive.
As well, you know, you cover loads of things like that, because I think that comes into it. That's what the super sensitive thing's all about. It's almost about telepathy as well. It's about many things.
Well, that's it. So maybe like the sensitive thing, if I can just say, so you got perceptive, which is consciousness, right? Perceptive. But if anxiety, you know, if anxiety is in the imperative, then perceptive becomes sensitive. You see what I mean? And that's the thing of it. That's the significance of anxiety existing in the imperative. Okay, we've got perception, right?
I think also as well, James, a lot of people, whichever way you want to do it, none of us want to hurt anybody. That the goal is not to hurt anybody. But a lot of people don't think like that. But it's opening up on a higher level as well. I don't even know if I can explain it. It's been with me all my life. So
that shows you what actually is going on, where none of the 99% have violent thoughts about anyone else. We all actually mainly have goodwill towards everyone else, yet we fight and die and pay for all these wars. And this shows you that the small nexus of anxiety controlling what everyone is thinking, this is actually what's caused all these wars. Because at our core, none of us want to have a fight. None of us. And you know, like people like new stuff. Consciousness loves new stuff, new experiences. And so none of us really have an issue with other races. Nah. It's about, like in England, there you've got like Tommy Robinson.
That's not what the globalist. That's not the globalist life, though. The globalist life isn't about that. It's all about ego. It's about false gods in the fact that, you know, an £18 million a year football or whatever it is, or season of footballer is far more important, and we're all looking at that rather than actually connecting with each other, talking to each other, even just giving each other the odd hug. Hug a stranger, you know. Can't anymore. It's like, come near me. Why are you talking to me? I don't trust you.
That's right. So if this was what I'm doing, it goes mainstream. That £100 million that Ronaldo just got paid for joining that club, that could buy every friggin' unemployed person a new car. Like, you could get that. You could buy every single unemployed person in London entirely new wardrobe, a new car, and have a whole lot of change left over. See, this is the motivation here, the inspiration here. You know, this has got to change, and it's like that observation between sensitivity and perception. See, perception, you can acknowledge poor people, but when you're being sensitive, this gives you permission to actually have no empathy, because it's all about me, and so.
I think a lot of people who've woken up as well as I asked this question in the chat room before, and I actually put a video about it. Most people said they were emphatic. I can't say the word. Emphatic. No, empathy. Had empathy. Sorry, I can't say the word. Yeah, so that's something else as well.
That is. It's like, so this whole experience is very, very multi-dimensional, Karen, where a whole lot of different things are acting at the same time. And this is this experience we're having. It's the character of consciousness and our spirituality having to exist in this physical format, which is, it's taking something that usually exists in a limitless expanse and forcing it to exist in this tiny little place. And so it's coming across a whole lot different to its intended kind of original form, right? And so yeah, the empathy thing, the apathy thing, they're actually serious points. In any discussion, to judge the system and the elite by their decisions, okay. I mean, it's clearly obvious to me, this free market thing that the economy uses, this was only ever about rich people, because the free market framework enables them to control all the markets, because they're the only ones with.
You've looked into the death certificate, haven't you, James? That we don't actually have a birth certificate. It's not a birth certificate. It's a death certificate.
Well, that's a very interesting thing, and that could be a great big chink in the armor, actually. How our names, when we get the mail from the government, are all capitalized. See, that kind of proves that's true, and that could be a big chink in their armor, because that's actually hugely deceptive and dishonest on their part, that we are playing along to this understanding when it's actually based on this giant lie, where they've borrowed a shitload of money. You know, hundreds of years ago, they borrowed a shitload of money using us as collateral. See, this is an invented understanding based on how anxiety likes to control people. It's entirely replicating the function of anxiety as it events in the mind, how they use us as collateral to a loan that we know nothing about. So it's inventing it out of it's inventing it out of
James, I got into looking up death row. I suppose it's because we don't have it. So we used to, even in the 50s here, we were killing people. But you know, like when you see that, what you're saying is that they treat them. I'm not saying that some of them aren't guilty and what you do with them, but you know, the way they make them live on death row for years, with that room just at the end of their little corridor, and you know, like the way that they treat them, it looks almost as if everybody thinks that we treat the cattle like cattle in the lorries or whatever it is in pens, but we're doing the same to the humans as well. That's what we're doing to the humans.
This is true. It's total lack of empathy. And there's nothing in there to rehabilitate when the entire setup is to say you're guilty and we're punishing you. That's the political optics of prison. There's nothing.
I think what happens is there's a bit more choice if you've only got a few years in there and you're quite young, that they'll try and educate you or give you courses to go on. But if you've got life in prison with no way of getting out, or you're on death row, they ain't really going to help you. You've got to do it all yourself.
No, that's right. That's right. And so going to the real thing that we're actually spirits having a human experience, there's nothing there to repair the confidence of a person's spirit. You know, they're put outside and they're left on, you know, you get out of prison and you're left to do things through your own means.
And what makes it worse, James, is it's coming out now that, you know, in the 80s, 90s and early 2000s, they didn't really care who they got in prison. As long as they just got the case solved, that's it, solved, that person's in. And actually then we work out that it costs about $70,000 for a prisoner each year in America. I just picked that one because that's what I was looking at. I'm not just picking on America. I was just researching. And like, it's like, oh, even the prisons, all to do with money. And then it showed how much those crystals are when they put them to death, you know, in the gas chamber. And it's like $300 for that. It's just a money-making machine. Just another layer of keeping these people. Oh, it's just, and it's, you know, at least half of them are going to get out.
No, they like economic turnover, Karen.
Something like that, like animals, just animals.
They're governing it to get the maximum economic activity they can. That's what they do. It's very obvious in New Zealand that they do that. There's been countless.
They're finding out a lot of them now have got to be let free because they're innocent. Things weren't taken into consideration, or they've been shoved in there without any forensic evidence.
Well, this is true. Now, to go back to what I said earlier, actually, what's really doing this is that they are under the influence of anxiety. The real genesis of their criminal nature is that they believe that anxiety is virtuous. And they've started out very early and they've ended up in this place because the experience people have when they are babies that do not possess language, little babies, that merely extrapolates out to where they are the people they are as adults. And so they go down this path and they secretly they have this idea as a baby that does not possess language, right? And they secretly seek out situations and situations that validate that belief. They search out for something that
Hey, James, sorry to interrupt you again. Flat Earth Dude wants to go. Flat Earth Dude?
I'm here.
Sorry, James. Do you want to go in a sec? You message so we say goodbye to you.
I got 4 more minutes. Shout out to the chat. Nibble Horse, a plane, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good stuff, man. He's writing some good stuff in the chat. Aris Sadek, Walter Williams. Thank you. He's killing it out there. Thank you.
I'm going to have to go.
Telex.
It'll make interesting reading after we finish.
What, do you go and check the chat room, do you, James?
Suzette, how you doing? Joe Mama, thank you. Rob, Gassy, who else is out there?
Suzette's there.
The
Oddity.
Yeah, it's the Oddity. How you doing? Good stuff.
It's totally
Oh,
fantastic. People
Oh,
are listening.
oh,
Thank
some
you,
of these
guys.
names, I'm sorry if I don't get them right.
Juan Carlos. All right. Thank you, Karen.
Oh, Flat Earth Dude, thank you, my darling. Love you lots.
Or we'll do this again. All right,
Yeah,
you guys
10, 10.
carry
Really
on.
good.
Carry on with the truth. Okay. Love you guys.
Oh, thank you.
All right. We'll see you later, James.
Thank you.
Patricia.
Okay, man. Hey, nice to meet you, man.
All right.
I'll see you in
now.
California one day.
Definitely. I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere.
Burning Man. Oh, man, yeah.
All right. We'll go
I'm
Burning.
coming. Nice to meet you,
All right.
Flat Earth Dude. I want your swimming pool.
Anytime. All right, love
Only
you guys.
joking.
All right.
Yeah, big
We'll see you
fat.
later.
Bye, darling.
Big
Bye,
hugs.
darling.
Bye-bye.
Bye, darling. Sorry to interrupt you, James. Just that he said I just saw a message. He's going to leave.
That's great. It's great, man.
Yeah, it's just it's Patricia. Good to see Patricia. Are you there, Patricia? So to see if she unmics herself.
Yeah, come on, Patricia. You know, consciousness is basic here, and consciousness likes to hear what other people have to say.
Can James? She's there.
Yes.
Patricia? I'm sure she said something. Oh, there she is.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm here. Sorry.
Hello, my darling.
My screen froze. So I
Oh,
just had to wait for it to come back up. Yeah. I'm
just
here,
while
sorry.
you're there and everything, what have you thought about some of the things we've been talking about today? Because I'm sorry you get left there. If I see you on mute, I'll go, hang on, Patricia's coming in, but you don't unmute yourself. But anyway, what do you think of what's happened today? What we've been talking about?
Well, like I always say, it's all very fascinating. I don't, especially the Mandela thing. It's like anything. Once you look into things, you can see them. Then it's like that veil's been lifted, and everything becomes clearer. You know, whether you use that information and put it sort of into practice on an everyday thing, it's one of those things, isn't it? What do we do with the information? You know, do we just sit here and go, oh yeah, that's happening, you know, okay, so.
We are trying, though.
yeah,
I
no,
mean, James is writing a book and going to go try and take this as politically as he can.
yeah.
You know, people are doing presentations like Dave Marsh's I put on. He's spent hours doing masses of research. So we are trying, but yeah, well, I just find it so weird. There's so many things they should be talking about. Like, I just put a little video out that I just noticed that Geo National March saying that they've found 5 fossilized forests in Antarctica. And it's like, what? It's like, surely this is the kind of news we'd like to hear. We'd like to hear these kind of things. No, we only remember the other things which they want us to hear. And I mean, like, for instance, Japan, they get those tsunamis. They are catastrophic. Like, they're having them all the time. They destroy miles of land and buildings and businesses and lives and kill thousands of people. Excuse me. It's catastrophic. Not really talking about them. They're just funneled into whatever they want us to be funneled into.
Right.
They
You
want
don't
to get us acclimatized to these things, don't they?
Carry on, Patricia.
They want us to be acclimatized to these things so they don't sound so strange. Oh yeah, you know, Japan's had another tsunami and this has happened over there. So we get, you know, even though we're awake, we still feel like we're being dumbed down. We can see it. We're not necessarily dumbed down. I don't mean we're dumbed down, but we can see the dumbing down that they want people to be like, you know, and I think sometimes we need to actually do something, but it's just finding that one thing that we can all sort of unite on And, you know, it's not always about flat earth, because not every single person is going to unite. When we're that divided, we're never, ever going to unite on one thing. Unless you could say love. We all unite on love, under the banner of love. That's the only thing I can think of. It's universal.
Oh, Patricia, I love you. She's such a lovely lady. Thank you, Patricia.
You don't really know me, do you? Ha ha ha.
Oh, Patricia.
No, you've got consciousness. I know that. And so it's something we've got in common, Patricia.
Patricia doesn't say that much on the Hangouts, but when she does, she's always got something good to say, don't you, Patricia?
Well, it's just what everyone else is saying, isn't it? It's just, I just think I'm the only one that says it, not. But yeah, there's always a song that springs to mind when we say one consciousness, and it's called One Voice. Barry Manilow did a version of it, and I just love that song, and that is what I think we all are. We're one voice coming together, and every single one voice makes a big, massive voice, and that's what we need.
Yeah,
we
that's
need to
true.
have.
That's right. No, that's right. That's what I know. That actually, it's the people that have all the power, actually, and they are very, very afraid of that. If we become self-aware, they have nothing. They have nothing. You know, they have nothing. They have no power at all next to that, and that's what this all is about. It's about them controlling us, and they need to use all these sneaky strategies because we are massively more powerful than them, and so yeah, I think this is a great thing that we're having this conversation. It's a wonderful thing.
It is. James, we have been going for a couple of hours.
Yep. It's been great.
Yeah. Is there anything like you'd like to add? Because obviously you're proactive anyway.
Yeah, no, my what's coming next is this continued political battle. You see, I know that the hardwired the system, the establishment, are hardwired in this belief that anxiety is wisdom, and they have all these theatres where they're putting everyone under control and all that. But really, the establishment and everywhere on earth were children in the Second World War, and so their values have been generated by that experience. Okay, and so that leads to this business of what I say when I focus on the child, the baby that does not possess language, and how their worldview is formed through experience, because it's the experience that they get the political optics. And the political optics of what goes on around them is their experience. And so this is all a giant freak accident, actually. And it's because, right, the world believes that consciousness doesn't exist, right? And it's this culture shock event of birth that brings anxiety into existence, which means consciousness pre-exists coming into the world. And so that's really my main push, is to actually have people focus on their consciousness. And this is like the conventional wisdom has it that we want to make people good people, and we have this good intention about that. And that's kind of largely what it is. It's a good intention to promote that, where I'm more interested in being the assertive Buddhist and actually making people engage with that, because they're being so preoccupied by all this rubbish, and it seems like a good idea, and that's the format of the civilization. We've been made to think all this rubbish is a good idea, and there is the replication of the event of anxiety in the mind, where anxiety gets people to believe this is all a good idea, when it's actually totally not in their interests to go even near that kind of way of seeing things. And so this is where the replication shows up again. You know, the revelation of the eight laws fits this facet of the human experience, and so it's a giant blessing. The Sun and Moon family united is a giant blessing to me, Karen, to be able to talk about this, because that's another problem. While we're all focused on all this rubbish we think is a good idea, we're not actually debriefing on how we feel spiritually, right? We're not actually, we don't have an outlet for that, you know, and that's a major problem. It's a consequence of the you know, the initial formatting that I've talked about, and so these are the things that will have to be like put right. And so that's why I know that the conversation about what's on the other side of the paradigm shift, this is really, really important, because what I am going to tell them is an amnesty, and they could, because they all have consciousness, right, and they're presented with this amnesty, and they need an exit strategy, because this big pattern of circular logic, the economic system work on with its debt-based kind of perspective, this is actually, they know they need an exit strategy for that. And so this is what I'm working on. And because in the same instance, it's like, it's the them story, but they're just doing what everyone else does. They try and be as creative as they can. And that's why this economic system exists. These human beings have been creative, and they've made up this creative thing, and they've been creative, and they think it's a great idea, and they've mostly just run around telling everybody this is a great idea, this is our creativity, and it's absolutely wonderful. And they're actually just doing the same thing everyone else does, but it's in that, they're in those shoes, right? Everyone else does what they're doing. Poor people totally do that, and the middle class, who are the reason we have an economy at all, they're actually 90% of the economy is the middle class, not rich people, because they all hide their money offshore. And so even we totally value being creative, and so this is the actual real situation. It's actually nobody's fault that we have had this freak accident happen to consciousness, finding itself in the realm of the physical realm. And just to enlighten people to this, that gives us objectivity to see what the error of our ways are. And that's really the going forward thinking I've got about fixing this situation.
Yeah, the one thing I like about you, Jay, you're very positive.
Oh, always, man, always. You know, they sit there, those rich people.
Echoing back.
Yeah, no, they drive past these. You know, the rich man drives past the house that's having a barbecue with all the friends over, and I can totally understand that they drive past and wish that was their life, because all they do is worry about money, and they're all very politically protectionist.
James, when you wake up, it's not that maybe if a new car was dropped off tomorrow, or a holiday, whatever, if you came across it's not that you don't want these things, but now those things mean different things. It's different now.
That's right. So the realize is
living in, and the amount of lies, and everything is a lie. Everything.
You know, I've got a great
perspective on everything.
I've got a great analogy about
so we've got Fred in the chat room, right? And Fred's really into trees. And, you know, he keeps saying to us, the trees are so important, resonate. And we need them to resonate and do what they've got to do. And they're trying to destroy it because they don't mind ivy growing all over them, and they choke the trees to death, etc., etc. You know, so it's just amazing. It's so this is what Flat Earth covers. It covers everything. Yeah.
So the view of the trees, that's a very spiritual perspective to have. And that's a great thing. And that's just a great thing, because I have the thing with the trees too. The trees were a very integral part of the forming of my worldview as a little kid, because, you know, as I said, my parents never talked to me, and so I had these big trees and big hills, and they say whispers. They whisper things, man, you know. And so that played a big part of my path where I've got here. But that analogy I was talking about the thing, you know, I used to really want a Lamborghini car. I used to want one thinking that would be the greatest thing. But the realization came, the awakening came, and now I've realized that I am the Lamborghini. And so that's the thing of it. Right? Yes, I thought that was a good one, eh? Because that's pretty much sums it up. And so this is the path we're on. So the spirituality, this is the true happiness of it.
In the chat, James, see oddity, it's realism.
Realism, of course, it's realism. It's the most real thing that there is about us. When you really think about it, it's the spirituality. This is the most real thing about us. See, the spirituality isn't external, and so we put all our value system. All our value system is based on external stuff, and you know, money is the great imposter of the function of consciousness. The function of money is an imposter of the function of consciousness. So it seems like rich people have more consciousness than us, but it's a lie that the happiness is an external thing. And so this is the truth. So,
that's the unfortunate thing, isn't it? They told us that. See, I had this question I asked people. I say, are you an outside person or an inside person? And a lot of people would go, well, I'm an outside, but you have to be an inside person because you live inside out, not outside in.
Yeah. So
and they've got you live outside in, but you're living inside out.
So I've got to say something about that is actually it will sound a bit blunt, but the truth of it is the spirit, that with the spirit human experience, right? The whole of it is on the internal, actually. And the giant lie is that the physical realm is the truth of it. But it's nothing to do with it. And so that we believe that it's a giant fucking lie when the whole thing of spiritness is inside. And so embracing that fact and then expressing ourselves, then we get the better foot forward. And this is about the paradigm shift. And so, yeah, it's like, so that's part of this giant system of lies, is that the freak accident of this culture shock event of birth. This creates the lie that the physical is what we should judge our values by. And so there you go. So that's why I'm coming from this a whole different way. And I think it makes tangible something, you know, to enable actually the nuts and bolts of what's happening. Because it's, you know what, it's the world's way to just obsess about problems.
Yeah, listen, do you know what's the really weird thing is? They keep selling the children the virtual reality games. But we're the most amazing virtual reality thing ever. We have virtual reality. Not a computer game.
So that's what I'm saying. This is actually the most science fiction thing ever. Just us. This thing going on with us. It's the most wickedest science fiction story in the history of everything that we're having this experience. And so we have got the giant win just by being ourselves without anything. And so that's the thing about it, exactly, Karen. Yeah, that's that's it.
We've got it out there. We can never probably get it because we can't afford it. But really, you know, you have to start. It's all within, and then come out. You know, like I've said before, flat Earth. You've got to. It's all about waking up and realizing who you are, the noble person that you are. But once you get to know who you are, then you can help the whole.
That's it. You know what you're saying.
This whole thing of waking up is not a selfish act just for yourself. Well, it is and it isn't. It is to wake you up, and then it's for the whole. Well, that's what I see anyway. That's how I've always felt. But
it makes a difference.
Haven't got that far yet.
You know, that's it's amazing. We talking that it's amazing the revelations that, you know, the realizations that come. because what you're just saying there about this virtual reality thing, you know, this is a lot of the moral high ground of the poor people. Okay, that they are important or whatever. It's because they're on the other end of the pendulum where it's family that matters.
You know why they had to be poor people, though, don't you? Because they didn't want them educated.
Well, that's true. That's
They only
right.
wanted a few people educated. Supposedly, we all get educated, well, with the crap, but we all get educated. And everything's moving. Like you're saying, it's shifting. So I think actually everything's looking much more ugly, to be honest. It just gets uglier and uglier, the bad bit, the bit you're looking at when it's not waking up, and the glow and all that, and what's happening on the news, or if you catch anything to do with the news, it's just, ooh, I'm not watching any more of that.
You're right.
It's all ugly. Ugly is the word I use. Ugly.
Well, this is right. Ugly is true because what I put it, the way I put it, is that they replicate the function of anxiety to seem like they are politically credible. Because courage acknowledges anxiety. Everyone thinks they're politically credible. But they've got to keep doing that because anxiety doesn't have any memory, remember? And so they keep replicating the function of anxiety on top of the last one. And this is why it's been pushing worse and worse and worse and worse. Because when it's just normal and common knowledge and you've got to make an impression on people, you have to up the ante a bit, right? And so that's what each replication of anxiety does. And so these big, like these false flag things and these other things that are going on, and they're saying these things in the media, like they had a thing on the news like last night actually, and this is why I want to go down and see Media Works. They had a thing where they had this motorway and they had this woman in this house and it's cracking her house, and it's like the motorway's doing it through vibrations, and they're fucking just scamming us. That is not a news story. That is not a news story. So this whole thing is pissing me off, man. You know, that's not a news story while people there's these things going on that people are not happy and they're unwell, and there's a lot of things that need solutions, and they're totally focused away from problems. Even though they're going on and on and on about all these bad things, they're actually really focused away from the problem by totally ignoring the cause of the problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, and that's why we have prisons full of people that shouldn't be there.
Well, according to
James, I was my boy, the father of my sons. It's not that he was actually into social care, but he was a farm manager, and there was this place called the Community. It was a therapeutic community for highly disturbed children, and they put the farm manager to try and give the children something like to focus on. They're being taken away from their families, but they wanted to catch them young to try and regress them back and give them all the things that they had never had in their life. And these children come from inner cities, and so there are places where there's just not enough. There's only handfuls of children. Even imagine, I don't think where they live is very nice, but they've been taken, you know, they're from their homes, they're in it's like a boarding school, but they're trying to dress them, and so they can suck their thumb and they can do things that they've never been able to do. But again, maybe they get a better start there than where they've come from. And some of the stories that I used to hear are just so horrible. So horrible. And that is what our prisons are full of. Those children.
Yeah, well, I think according to the reason that domestic violence happens, if we can actually attend to the reason that domestic violence happens, actually, I would pardon mostly everyone in prison for violence, man, because the cause of the violence has its genesis in the belief that anxiety is wisdom. Okay, that's why they start amping up.
Anxiety is not wisdom.
Anxiety is not
we think we're talking wisdom, but we're not. It's just anxiety.
This is true, and the fact that we're culture shock, the freak action of the culture shock of Eden birth. So everyone's tricked into thinking that. So it's very easy to be biased toward that, and then you get someone who has an anxiety, and then someone there uses anxiety logic to defend themselves, and then it starts going up and up and up because people have a compulsion to, defend the virtue of anxiety. They're defending themselves, but they actually are defending the virtue of anxiety. That's the political optics. When the cause of anxiety is in a time when there was no language.
Basically, James, the system that they made has done very well then.
It's a system that's accommodated the belief that anxiety is wisdom. And that's why we get all these outcomes. If the whole world was like a local rural, little small town, little rural community, the world would be completely different. The world would be totally different than it is now. If the whole of the Western civilization had remained with the values like in a very small community where respect and courtesy were a code, and it was always ladies before gentlemen, always. And children had a strict code.
My growing up when I grew up as at school in the 80s, and I did sociology,
right,
and it just seems that everybody forgets that 100 years ago, even here in the UK, women didn't have any rights. But I still think, and that's the suffragettes, but I still think that, was it really that we wanted to be equal with men? I don't think it was. I just think that, I don't understand. It was emotional equality we wanted. I can't live like you can. I can't necessarily even say a bike. I couldn't do that, but I do other things. But unless everybody, and this is what happened, isn't it, right? In the obviously it was happening in the First World War, but the Second World War, what it was is the men went off, and then when the women were doing so many of the men's jobs, and then this is what my sociology, this is what they were teaching us, so that men came back from the war, they just thought they'd be able to carry on the way it was, and everything had changed. And this is where big divorces are starting to happen, and everything's changing. And then from that, men and women lost their roles, and then men haven't known who they are, and women haven't known who they are, and we still want you to open the door for us, but we still want to be equal. But I think that it was, because this is more they put it more to do. I think it was emotional equality was the thing that we were looking for with each other. But
emotional, you would have heard
another James, and we're supposed to be winding down.
Well, okay, yeah, cool. But have you noticed in the whole politicization of the human sphere, never once, because I know that this experience I've had in New Zealand from the media of that is very much like the US, everywhere else, England, and all this politicization of the personal sphere, when has anyone ever spoken up for the concept of respect and courtesy? Because the concepts of respect and courtesy make everyone equal, right? And the natural inclination, according to our spirituality, is that mum is mum, dad is dad, and we have our place in the family, in society, and that's the best role. Men should be men, women should be women, and under those terms, mum is the ruler of everything. This is what the thing of it is, because that's the more, mum, right, is the much more powerful expression of consciousness, because it's mum is the nurturer, mum looks after the kids, mum looks after dad, mum looks after the house while dad's out working and that. But the home is the very central feature of our civilization, actually. And so you talk about respect, getting respect. Well, this is why mum was respected more than dad, right? Because mum did a much more important job, because she had to network all these things together. And then she had to, she had the home, she had the children. So this is why I say the female has a much more dramatic expression of consciousness that has her natural role, okay? And the man is a simple thing. The man is just oftentimes a man is a small child that never grew up. And he has a simple premise. You go and work, earn the money, and bring it back. So you take it even back historically in the hunter-gatherer era, the man goes out and hunts for the food, but what else is happening in the village? And the women are doing all the stuff in the village, right? So the true actual reality is women have always been more important than men in the context of community. And I'm quite happy about that. And, the role, the traditional role of the woman, this really creates a lot of social cohesion, and so this is getting right down into it. You talk about going deep, right? Well, this is one of the deep elements, the actual reality that is presented to me when it comes to the difference between men and women and the natural role that they both play. According to the expression of consciousness, as it manifests itself in this realm, the women are always hugely more important than men because they have such a more dramatic expression of consciousness. And this is something women are naturally inclined to do. Now, that's an extremely respectable thing to have that. And so this is I hate to, I know I'm sounding like I'm really arguing for feminism here, but this is the actual appreciation I have for consciousness and what it is trying to achieve by creating this place, by manifesting this place, by manifesting itself in this realm where you've got men and women. And I'll point out that consciousness, right, you compare the human being to consciousness, and the sex of the human being is immaterial in this discussion of consciousness, actually. And so, aside from the human being thing, consciousness is uniform. It only finds itself in the male and in the female. And so this is the giant lie of all the modern political thing, because that's what their real aim is to take that spirituality away from us. And this is what it means to politicize the personal sphere, because this is the aspiration of anxiety. Okay? And that's what I'm saying.
Well, James, listen, See Oddity wants to have your link to your channel, which I will add to this post after we finished. So someone wanting to go and look at your videos.
I'll jump on the comments, right? And I'll put my link to my Facebook.
James, can you do that? That'd be brilliant. I've got your channel somewhere. I should have put it on the link. There you go. See, James is going to do it in just a second. But James, we've been going for nearly 2.5 hours now.
No, it's been brilliant, man.
Hammering your point there about consciousness and anxiety.
Well,
I'd like to say
the last bit just now, this valuable. The last part I just said is incredibly valuable to understand what needs to be on the other side of this paradigm shift. Because that's actually the only thing that anyone thought back in the day. This giant lie they had in New Zealand that there's a giant domestic violence problem. This is a lie because they're using statistics from Canada, okay, and they're selling it to New Zealand like it's our thing. And so this is a giant lie, and so I want revenge on all this, man, and I want revenge by trading our past for a future. And
sounds good to me, James.
My Facebook is in the comments right now. I'll just put a little indication of the article. It is the senior elements, it's the senior data points pre-discovery, but it leads to the senior elements, the senior data points post-discovery. And that's a real good read, man. It's like amazing. And so, you're right.
Oh, See Oddity says he could stay here all night. Oh, that's really sweet of you, but we are going to end the hangout in a minute. Oh, chat room, you said some lovely things today. Thank you so much. And, you know, we're just hopefully sun and moon here to bring people together somehow, you know. We're never all going to agree on exactly everything, but we have a lot of common ground and we've got to somehow come together. But I'd like to say thank you very much to Nicolas, who is Vedic VE Viking, who comes in our chat room. I'd like to say an awesome thank you to Flat Earth Dude, to Astral, to Patricia, and to, of course, lovely James and our lovely chat room. We're back tomorrow with Robert Forsch. And yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from us. Mwah, to everybody.
Love you all.
Hello, Patricia. We love you too. Mwah. Thank you, James.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, James.
Yeah, you're welcome.